Hi, YouTube friends. I have a big announcement, and that goes along with this practice. And that this practice, I'm going to give you a short clip of how to mobilize your thoracic spine, which, if you feel where your ribs are, your thoracic spine is the 12 vertebrae in between your lumbar, your low back, that we know often because of low back pain, and your cervical spine, which is your neck. So the majority of our spine is the lumbar spine, and it's the least mobile part, but it's super important to keep it mobilized. And we're going to learn some safe ways through somatic yoga of how to mobilize the thoracic spine through rotation, and to clarify the difference of rotating from an arm, a leg, versus the hips and the shoulders. And if you want the full version of this video, here's the big announcement. We will very soon have our own membership channel. I'm so excited to share with you, private membership channel, and you'll have the opportunity to sign up for weekly videos. But I also want to thank you for all of these years for supporting us on YouTube. So let's get started. We're going to be coming onto our back first, and you're welcome to put something underneath your head if that's more comfortable. And we start with landing. I think I'll use my sheepy fur here. Start with landing. Take your feet to the ground and let your spine, feel your spine, maybe even press into your feet to rock your spine side to side, roll your shoulders. So can you massage your spine on the ground? Just a little bit of movement. So movement on the ground creates feedback. And the feedback is sensation, and it gives you something to stay present in. Then see if you can make those moves smaller and smaller and just settle into your spine. At that point, if you want to take your legs long, you can. And feel the whole back of your body, anywhere that you can just let gravity hold you. That's landing, yielding to the ground. The reverse of that is notice if there's anywhere you're holding tension, you're trying to support yourself with your muscles versus letting the ground support you, and particularly in your spine. Just sensing that. And somatic yoga gives you the option of moving to your breath. So if we choose to move to the breath, we might want to find our breath first. You could place one hand on your belly, the other up on your chest, and just find yourself in your breath. Meaning, notice when you're breathing in. What is the movement pattern of the body? Can you feel the expansion? And notice when you're breathing out. Can you feel the movement pattern of the body as it comes back in and empties? And think of your lungs. They're filling as you breathe in and emptying as you breathe out. And we start with breathing because the lungs are in the thoracic spine. If you feel the bottom of your rib cage, that's your 12th thoracic. That's right at the bottom on the back side. And come up through your ribs. Your lungs go all the way from the bottoms of the ribs to the collarbones, which is basically that whole space of thoracic spine. So something I want you to check if you're breathing with me is that there is movement in the rib cage and above. So your diaphragm is right at the bottoms of the ribs. The abdomen is below. And if you're only feeling the movement in your abdomen, I encourage you to take the heels of your hands, place them on the outer ribs, and put just a little bit of pressure there. And if it's comfortable, see if you can get your breath to go above the diaphragm into the chest cavity. This is where we start to mobilize the thoracic spine. And you can feel it in the way that the ribs will spread and lift, going outward and upward. You can also feel it from the chest. Place a hand on your chest. And think of all 360 degrees of the ribs. So the back body, that's where your vertebrae are closer anyhow. Can you feel movement in the ribs against the ground? Can you feel movement in the shoulder blades against the ground? That's all leading into the thoracic vertebrae. If at any time when you change your breath you feel uncomfortable, go back to just watching your natural breath. But we'll take about 5 more rounds to try to bring the breath up into this area of chest, into the rib cage. I used to live on a lake, so I like to imagine I've got an inner tube around me and I'm floating in the water and I'm breathing into that inner tube all 360 degrees. I'm breathing out and letting it go. All right, so we'll start with rotation of moving from the pelvis, the hips. And this is something that it's really important to understand where we're moving from. So I'm going to ask you to place your feet on the ground. You can take your arms wherever they're comfortable, maybe out to your sides, but the idea is the shoulders will stay put on the ground. They're not going to move. And as you think of your body, we're going to go into torso with the understanding that your torso or your trunk has a bottom and a top. The bottom of the trunk or torso is your pelvis. And your pelvis is attached to your legs. This may sound simple, but visualize this. So wherever your pelvis goes, your legs go. And vice versa. Wherever your legs go, your pelvis follows. Now look at the top of your sandwich, which is your shoulder girdle. Imagine your shoulder girdle, touch it. You can touch your collarbones. And wherever your shoulder girdle goes, your arms go, or vice versa. Wherever your arms go, the shoulder girdle can follow. So with that in mind, your shoulders are on holiday, and I want you to feel yourself from your pelvis and your feet. Feel the big toe side of the right foot and the little toe side of the left foot. And as you take a breath in, push into the little toe side of the left foot, big toe side of the right foot, and let your knees go to the left, but push into the ground to create a little force. Breathe out, come back, land flat feet. Now feel the pinky toe side of the right foot, big toe side of the left foot. Push into them and let the legs go to the right. And notice the way you're moving from your feet, you're going to push into one big toe side, one little toe side. On the inhale, you can reach your thigh bones forward and then come back to center. So we're moving from the feet. Can you sense the way that the pelvis is responding, right? So this idea that the pelvis is going to go where the legs go. And we might think of it as a pelvic rotation, but notice how you feel it all the way up into your rib cage, into your thoracic spine. And just play with this for a moment. It should feel nice. And then instead of pushing through the feet, what happens if you move from your thighs or your knees? Take your knees to one side, push them slightly forward. You can lengthen your waist. Breathe out, come back to center. So taking this rotation from your feet, now your knees, your thighs. And then finally, maybe place your hands on your hips. Can you move from the hips? So if you lift a hip up, and you're going to be using your gluteal muscles, you might not go as far, but notice how the legs will go to that side. So if I lift my right hip up, I can tilt my legs to the left. If I lift my left hip up, my legs tilt to the right. So I'm creating that same rotation in the pelvis and thoracic spine. But now I'm using hip muscles, gluteal muscles. There's another way we do movement in somatic yoga. We push into gravity or pull away from gravity. So right now we're pulling away by lifting the hip. You could also think of, as you're breathing in, press into the left hip, lift the right hip. So push down, pull up, and then release. So we're creating this rotation, and oftentimes what happens is the legs are moving and there's nothing happening in the pelvis. That's what I see a lot in yoga. Rotation is meant to move your spine. So how can you do this, maybe using the legs and the pelvis, to feel the rotation through your juicy center, I call it, the middle of your sandwich. So not just the legs moving, but the whole torso. And take a few more, and you can stop anywhere along the way. Any combination of using feet, thighs, knees, and your hips. And then we'll take a final hold. So next time you find both legs over to the right, see if you want to pause there. You might even slide your right arm just over. Feel that lengthening of your right side, but notice the rotation of the pelvis to the left. Feel the way your left hip is landing into the ground, your right hip is lifted. Your shoulder blades are still resting on the ground. So we've created the rotation from the bottom half of our beautiful body, and we're just breathing into that. And rotating from the pelvis and the legs is a beautiful way to release some of these muscles that are on the hips, like our outer hips, our gluteal muscles, the tensor fasciae lata. We hold a lot of tightness in the hips. So rotation from the hips is great for that, and we're mobilizing the thoracic spine, especially the bottom half of the thoracic spine. One thing I like to do is in yoga, in the somatics, we do the independent suspension of breath. So you can place a left hand on the left ribs. Breathe into your right ribs. Breathe into your right lung. And notice how just your breath into your right lung is mobilizing the ribs. And if you feel the ribs moving, then you're bringing some movement into the thoracic spine. Last breath there. Come back to the center, and then we'll switch sides. Bring your legs and your pelvis all the way over to the right, both knees. You can slide your left hand over if you want a little more side stretch. And now notice the way your pelvis is rotating to the right. Your shoulders are still on the ground. Creating that space through the left side, you can place your right hand on your left lung. Use your breath to continue to mobilize. But let your brain feel the way the pelvis and the legs are acting as one unit in rotation, moving to the left or to the right. And then coming back to the center position. Just take your legs out for a moment. Take a full body yawn. Reach for your feet, your arms. Full breath in. Exhale. Let go and fall. And just take even just 3 to 5 breaths to notice. What does it feel like now to be present, your legs and your hips in the center of your juicy body? And then we're going to see if we can create that same twist, but from the upper thoracic spine. So here's where you might want to bring a pillow or blanket or something in. We're going to roll onto our right side. Bring your right arm forward to where it's comfortable, so you're not resting on the outer shoulder. You could put that blanket underneath your right cheek if you'd like. And bring your knees up. And so you stack your knees so that your left is on top of your right. Really any position, but I like to think the thigh bones are 90 degrees from the spine and the shins are parallel to the spine or the long edge of the mat. That creates a nice rotation. And just let yourself rest. Feel your right side. Grounding, landing. We'll be moving from the left. So this is where, just like we learn to move from the legs and then the pelvis, we can learn to rotate from the arm and the shoulder. So if I want to rotate from the arm, which is typically what we often see in yoga, I might take my left palm forward. You can do this with me. And as you breathe in, think of breathing into your left lung. Lift your arm and take it back behind you. And notice how the torso obediently follows. As you breathe out, take the hand back. So we're starting the rotation from the torso. Inhale, take the arm and open up like you're going to give a big hug. Exhale, close. So can you sense the way you're now moving really more truly into your thoracic in the rotation, because you're rotating from your upper body. And you're letting your head just follow along. What I find often interesting is notice the amount of rotation you're getting through the arm versus are you just feeling pulling or discomfort, like you're stretching that arm too far away from the torso, because what will happen is the arm will go further oftentimes than the torso. And back to my point, the point of rotation is for the spine. So we're going to switch this around. Do one more. Notice how far your spine goes when you're rotating, leading from your arm. And then we're just going to let that left arm relax on our body. What you might do is even place your hand on your left lung. See if you can locate yourself through your left lung and breathe into your left lung. Because the breath itself creates the space to rotate. Picture that lung it's right in there next to your center of your juicy spine. And the next time you breathe into the left lung, the arm is going to stay completely relaxed. Think of your collarbone and your shoulder blade on the left side. And from those bony landmarks, rotate your torso on the inhale. Breathe out. You can come back. Bring the collarbone towards the ground. Inhale, take the shoulder blade towards the ground. Exhale, roll back. So truly making this rotation from the shoulder girdle, just like we could make it from the hip girdle. I like the girdles. And you might feel it in your hips, but for the most part, the hips are staying where they are. Just like in the last rotation, the shoulders were staying where they are. Let's play with this. Can you create the rotation through your spine and let your arm just go along for the ride? And notice the pattern of movement. Do you feel like maybe the shoulder is getting a little bit closer to the ground? That's not a goal, but are you getting more spinal rotation versus just the arm going back? Because that's really more the purpose of rotation, is for the spine to move. And you can take a few of these. I like to think of, I do the eye it, try it, buy it. So we eye it, we think about what we're going to do, try it, how does it feel? And then you can put the two together. Rotate from your shoulder blade and your collarbone and also take the arm back. And I noticed for me, before my arm wasn't touching the ground without feeling pulling or strain and right in that shoulder joint. Now that I'm moving from my torso too, my arm comes all the way down without the strain. Because my brain has woken up to the fact that I can rotate the upper body from the torso, from the trunk. And the arm just helps at the very end to create a little more space. So play with that idea. Letting them move together. Letting your head roll. And again, we'll find a spot where maybe we just want to stop. If your shoulder blade is not touching the ground, then think about putting your hand on your ribs and bending your elbow so we're not straining the front of the shoulder there. We can just place the hand on the ribs. And the two sides may be different. This side, I can comfortably get my shoulders on the ground. Feel the rotation. Think of your spine like a spiral staircase. And where do you feel the tension, meaning the stretching, the pulling? You might even feel it in your skin. Can you breathe into that area? So right into that left side body. Breathe out, release, relax. Breathe in and create space. Where there's already space, the posture is already creating space. Where do you feel that? And then see if you can add on to that space by breathing into it, into the ribs on the left side, front and back sides. Breathe out, let go. And get a sense of this position now. You've created this rotation from the shoulders. Your legs are still stacked, your hips are stacked. Where do you feel this rotation? Probably deeper into the thoracic versus rotating from the hips and the legs. Take your last breath there. And then slowly come back onto your side. We'll be switching sides, but before we do, we're going to take the magic moment, which means just coming into a position where your body is balanced and symmetrical. I like to come onto my back side, shake out your legs a little bit, and just feel the two sides of your body. What does your left side feel like versus your right, particularly in the torso, the hips, the shoulders? More of an understanding of where that juicy center spine is. Being able to mobilize it. I think that helps to hydrate it, makes it even juicier. It's like this idea that our spine could be like a carrot. I'm a big fan of carrots. However, that's kind of stiff versus a cucumber. We're turning the spine into a cucumber. So let's switch sides. Take your time. You'll be laying on your left side this time. And Anything under your head that feels good, bring that left arm forward, stack your knees. So placing the right leg on top now, bring your thigh bones so they're 90 degrees from your spine and your shins parallel to the long edge of the mat. And first we just land, meaning yielding to the ground. Let all of your muscles relax and let the bones, notice the structure of your bones holding you in this space. Don't have to do anything. And then if you'd like, you can place your right hand on your ribs. See if you can direct your breath into your right lung. It's like a big, beautiful balloon, and it fills and empties. And when we have any sort of tightness in our thoracic spine, it often shows in the breath. So it's harder to breathe into this area because the muscles of respiration are also some of the muscles that help to move our thoracic spine. Our intercostal muscles, right between the ribs, you're feeling those just by breathing. And then we'll move from the arm again first. So take the palms together. Take a breath into your right lung. And as you do that, open up the right arm. You can watch your hand if you want. And exhale, come back. And each time, you're just working your way into finding your end point of motion without forcing it. So this idea of creating sensation without strain, really important. What are you saying to yourself? And I know for me, the big part with moving from the arm is this side, I'm tighter in my rotation. So it's very easy for me to strain my shoulder, to let that arm go further than the torso wants to go. So I have to stop taking the arm back when the torso says so. And sometimes it's the hip that says so. You might feel it all the way down there. But starting to find that range of rotation through the arm. And let's take one more with the arm. Notice how far or close your shoulder blade is to the ground. Take the arm back. We're going to let the arm be a passenger on the side body now. And feel yourself from the bony landmarks of your right collarbone, your shoulder blade. You can even touch them. So we use those bony landmarks, if they're available to you, to help you to move. So now you can breathe into your right lung, which is going to start that spaciousness to rotate. And then as you breathe into the right lung, think of moving from your shoulder blade and your collarbone. Roll them towards the ground. It's active. It's voluntary. Breathe out and come back. Let the head be heavy and just follow along with the shoulder girdle. And that's a compensation we watch for, that we're not trying to lift the head up. That often happens, especially when we go into the torso. We're not used to moving from the muscles of the thoracic spine. So the neck, the cervical spine, tries to help out. Your head is like a bowling ball, just rolling. Usually when I bring these things up, it's because I just had that reminder in my body. My neck was trying to move because this is my tighter side. That's a compensation. So taking your time, finding the movement from your beautiful trunk, your shoulder girdle, and then we can put them together to find the full range of motion. So palm can come out. Move by breathing into your ribs, moving from the collarbone and the shoulder blade, but then also take the arm back. Oh, what a difference. My hand's touching the ground now without that pull in my shoulder. They're moving freely as one unit. So much more fun and easeful. Always underdo. And notice on this side, you might feel it more in your shoulder versus your hip. Think of your luscious thoracic spine mobilizing and rotating. And if you want to take one more and stop, same rule for me is that on this side, my shoulder blade's not quite supported by the ground. So I would take my hand and place it on my rib cage so that my elbow is there. So I'm not straining the front of the shoulder. And you still get a nice stretch through your pectoral muscles, so important, and the availability to breathe into your right side. So the pose just becomes a container for your breath. And this container is creating beautiful space for you to breathe into the right side of your thoracic spine. Take your time coming out. And we'll take a pause to taste what we just created in our body. Come on to your backside again, knees bent or legs straight. Maybe try again placing your hands on your rib cage. And see if you can let your breath move through your abdomen as well, but bring it all the way up into your thoracic spine. So into your we say your chest cavity, right? Thoracic cavity above the diaphragm. How does that feel now? Is there more expression of fullness and emptiness? Take 3 more full breaths into the circumference of your spine. Picture your lungs filling and emptying. Because when we breathe like this, we move all of the tissues around the spine themselves too. That's freedom. And then just let your breath be soft and natural. Say thank you to the center, your juicy center, as well as to your pelvic girdle, your hips, your legs and arms, the wholeness of your body, including your head and your brain. We're welcome to rest for a while or take it up. So like I said, this will be a full-length video on our new video library coming very soon. We're very excited to announce it. And you'll have the opportunity to learn how to take practices like this and put them into regular hatha yoga. How would we use this in rotation in a standard yoga class? Because somatic yoga is a style of yoga that's very practical, not just in life and keeping us comfortable in our bodies so that we can do the things that bring us joy. That's my main focus, but also for other practices, other yoga practices. So thank you for joining me and for all your support over all these years. Peace, joy, love, and light.